The comments and opinions of Talk of the Heartland with McKoy are not necessarily the opinions of Walnut Media USA, management, station manager Janelle Reeves, any particular denomination or religion, the mailman, the church lady, or anyone else of sound mind and body. Now, here's the Talk of the Heartland with McKoy on KCRO, the Heartland's Christian voice.
Thank you, Patrick. It is the 16th day of September in the Lord's year 2022. I'm McKoy, and it's the Friday edition of Talk of the Heartland here on the Heartland's Christian voice. I might add, the number one local Christian talk station in Omaha, Council Bluffs, and Lincoln. Now, you might think, well, that's probably my pride showing. Well, let's find out. One of the pastors that I enjoy having on this program did a sermon this past Sunday, and it was on pride. And one of the things that was included in this, by the way, this is from Mark Ashton over at Christ Community Church here in Omaha on Old Mill Road. Or is maybe 108th and Old Mill, something like that. Great church. Just started their Bible study on Friday mornings, and we're getting ready to study the book of John there. So if there is a man listening and you would like to join a heck of a Bible study, you don't have to belong to the church. There's no cost, but it's about 6 o'clock in the morning till about 7:30, and that is on John. But I need to go back. Go back to the fact that last Sunday, Pastor Mark at CCC preached, Randy in one of my other Bible studies said it was one of the best sermons he's ever heard. And so I had to check it out. And he's right. And the content, the topic was, are you too prideful? Now, you might say, well, what does that mean, too prideful? If you're proud of your children, does that make you prideful? I'd say no, but I don't know. For me, that would be no. But what does Jesus say? So today, Pastor Austin gave me, or Ashton, I'm sorry, I keep calling him Austin. Pastor Ashton, Mark Ashton, gave me the 16 points of a quiz that will help you figure out whether you are too prideful. How about that? And it's really interesting. And here's the way he started it. By the way, in a few moments, I'm not going to play part of that sermon, but I am going to play a part of a sermon from one of my favorite evangelists and pastors, and that's Matt Chandler. And he's got a little 4-minute ditty on pride that I think you'll enjoy. But here's what Mark said in the sermon. I want to ask you today to consider the possibility that pride might be an issue for you. In fact, let's do a pride quiz and see how many of these you might say are true of you often, me included. All right, just count on your fingers or on a note on your phone. Here are some characteristics for those like me who struggle with pride. There are 16 points. One of the things that Mark says in his sermon is, in the 7 deadly sins in Proverbs, have you ever noticed that you have pride alongside with murder, lying, and gluttony? So it may make you think, as I do, does pride really fit in there with murder, lying, and gluttony? Mark says, actually, pride is the leader of the pack. Pride makes us the center of the universe. or at least we think so. It is pride that makes you think that the other political party is just a bunch of idiots. All right. Think about that one. Right now, I'm guilty. I mean, I don't talk politics on this station because I did it for years and I don't want to anymore. But right now, the left thinks the right are idiots and the right thinks the lefts are idiots. I mean, the left right now is calling the right idiots because these governors and these senators and these mayors are sending busloads of immigrants as they just walk across the border without a border patrol there, without anybody arresting them. They're just walking across. And when they get there, there's a bus or a plane waiting for them. And they've been dropped at Martha's Vineyard. They've been dropped in California at one of the governor's houses, or one of the maybe it's a senator's house, and they've been dropped in front of the home of our vice president in Washington, D.C. Now, whatever you may think of that, there are people on the left calling the right idiots. And there are people on the right calling the left idiots. But according to Mark's sermon, it is pride that makes us think that. Pride feeds the monster of more. Pride. Pride is what makes you read that one thing in the Bible that you disagree with in the Bible and think you are smarter than God. Boy, did I resemble that remark 13 years ago, my first 50 years. The passage on divorce or adultery or homosexuality or submitting to authority. Do we need to go farther? Pride makes you think you deserve the best, the raise, the attention, the opportunity, the extra helping at the dinner table. Pride fills you up so much with yourself that it leaves no room for Jesus in you. If you have pride, you have a problem. All of this is why God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Pride is the only disease known to man that makes everyone sick, except the person who has it. Mark says, I don't know who said that, but since this is my sermon on pride, thought I needed to make it a quote, even though I don't know who to quote. By the way, I'm sure that sermon is online at christcommunitychurch.org. So maybe CCC Omaha, I believe that is, .org. So we're going to play this little ditty, and this is not from Mark. This is from one of my favorite guys, Matt Chandler, and on Pride. And then when we come back, we're going to start on a list of 16 issues with pride. And if you're driving, obviously, I do not want you to have a pencil and paper. But if you are listening to this or you want to listen to this later on this webcast, you can go to kcro.com and click on my podcast, and you can listen to these 16 questions about, are you too proudful or prideful? But first, let's just kind of listen to what Matt says about pride. I think you'll find it very, very interesting.
It creates safe places and destroys sectarian pride. So my background, for those of you who don't know me, is I grew up in a abusive home. In fact, I've got 150 years of just wickedness in my bloodline. First Chandler male to graduate from high school, first Chandler male to get a college degree, first Chandler male to not spend any time in jail, although there was one night my junior year, I've never told that story, okay? First Chandler male to have a wife that's not fearful. First Chandler male to have kids that don't run from him when he comes home. First Chandler, all this by the grace of God, all this by the mercy of God. But upon Christ saving me, I had this insatiable thirst for him and this deep love for him, but I was a mess. And my experience with the church early on was that no one else was. Now, I found out years later everybody else was just lying. But man, I was a mess, man. I had serious lust issues. I had serious rage issues. There was a lot of dark things in my heart. But because I was in the late 80s, early 90s, okay, and where I was in that period of time, there wasn't a lot of gospel. There was very much a lot of Christians look this way, they do these things, they don't do these things. In fact, I was given a little grid. If you're a Christian and you like this, listen to this. If you like this, listen to this. And there was this distinction made for right or for wrong, of what we do versus what the world does, but it was all gospel-less in my understanding. So I want to clearly say that some of that is absolutely on me, but no one else had a problem with lust as far as I could see. No one else had a problem with rage. Everyone else had their hand on their heart during the worship songs and would even do that, Everyone had to journal. Everybody would amen at the right point. Passion was kind of picking up steam as I got into college, and so everybody would raise their hands when they were supposed to, and with our hands lifted high, everybody's hands would go up, all right? And it just seemed like everybody had it down but me. And then I didn't feel like I could go, wait a minute, I'm really struggling here because no one else was. And so just a phrase we've used at the Village for 8 years is, it's okay to not be okay. But it's not okay to stay there. And so we want to constantly preach the gospel and say, what does this mean? This means that God knows. So I want to constantly drive people back to the cross, constantly come back to the reality of, listen, you come here, you're feeling ashamed, you're feeling dirty, you're feeling overwhelmed. He knows the whole point of the cross is you being where you are right now, so that you wouldn't have to be there tomorrow if you'd submit your life and heart to the Son of God. And so it creates an environment where it's okay to struggle, where it's okay to go, man, I'm having a hard time with this. I need help. I need the community of saints to gather around me and help me. I need Jesus, this constant drum of, I need him. He's my only hope. I need him. He's my only hope. I need him. He's my only hope. And it'll put to death sectarianism. And what I mean by that is if you preach the gospel faithfully week in and week out, nobody leans against the cross and says, you fools need to get some of this. Everybody bows before it and goes, there's room. There's room.
That is Matt Chandler from the Village Church in Dallas, Texas, and that is his a little itty-bitty ditty from his sermon on pride. All right, when we get back, and again, I want to give Pastor Mark Ashton credit for this. This is a sermon he gave last week, and he allowed me to get a copy of it. And there are 16 points that he lays out in his sermon about, you may have too much pride if you blank. There are 16 blanks, and I'll share them with you when we come back in 2 minutes. I'm Mac McKoy. This is the Talk of the Heartland on AM 66, AM 660, FM 106.7 in Lincoln and all around the world. Yep, at KCRO.
Do you need a little good news in your life? Tune in to Spotlight Good News Omaha on KCRO 3 times daily, weekdays at 5:30 a.m., 9:45 a.m., and 10:15 p.m. with your host, Tim Janisewski, on KCRO, the Heartland's Christian voice.
Chances are you already know that ginseng is great for an energy boost, but did you know about the healing power of red ginseng? Not only boosts energy, but relieves fatigue, plus it's an anti-inflammatory. When you get off your coffee shop dependency, red ginseng is so much better for your heart, your blood pressure, helps balance your hormones, and it helps in the bedroom. Find out more about this great multitasker at where else? NoNameNutrition.com. 2 locations.
Hey, stop
This is Steve
using
Arterburn
these for
from New
ear
Life
cleaning.
Live. Do you have any
They're
character
even
building
banned
people
to
in your
use-
life?
That's what I call the
It
people that
creates
make
safe
your life
places
difficult.
and destroys
we hate the
sectarian
fact
pride.
that they're even in our lives, but without them, we'd never come close to what God wants for us. Tune in at 1 o'clock Monday through Friday as we answer questions on how to deal with some of the character-building people in your life.
The Heartland's Christian Voice, KCRO.
What is it?
Do you ever use the word pride?
We don't want to
I do.
look weak.
What
because
does that
basically
say about you
humility
biblically?
is saying I'm nothing.
I'm Mac
and I
McKoy
need
on
a
the
Christ,
16th
and I need
day of
help,
September
and I need
in
God.
God's year of
I need
2022.
Christ. I need what
and
He
this
did
is
for
the
me.
Talk of the
I am
Heartland
nothing.
on the Heartland's Christian Voice
There's another class
on
of
AM
people.
660,
There's people
FM
that are standing out there
106.7 in
today that are
Lincoln,
convinced
and
that
all
because
around
of
the world
pride
at
and arrogance, you stand with your
KCRO.com.
back straight, with
All right,
your
as I
head
was saying
tilted back,
a little
and
bit
you
ago,
think
that Mark
What is it?
Ashton
I mean, what is it
over
about
at
pride?
Christ Community
We
Church
don't want to
here
look
in Omaha
weak.
served
Because basically
a
humility
message up
is
this
saying
last
I'm
Sunday,
nothing,
and a friend
and
of
I
mine
need
in
a
one of my
Christ,
Bible
and I
studies
need help,
told
and
me
I
that he
need
thought
God.
it was one of the
I
best
need
sermons
Christ.
he's ever
I
heard.
need what He did for
Well,
me. I am nothing.
Randy says it's one of the best sermons he's ever heard.
There's
I know
another
Randy's
class
heard a lot of
people.
them.
There's people that are
So I went to
standing out
Mark
there
to
today
talk
that
about
are
it, and he
convinced
gave
that
me a
because of
script of
pride
his
and
sermon as
arrogance,
well
you
as a
stand
little
with your
quiz.
back straight, with your head
And
tilted
you and I are
back,
gonna
and you
take that
think
little
that you're
quiz
just
this
okay.
afternoon.
You think that you're just
And
the
if
best
you
God
are driving
that's
down
ever
the road,
made,
as I
and
said
you've
earlier,
never
please
been
don't try and
broke by
drive me,
God.
write
You've
these
never
down.
been broke
You
by
can go to
man because you have a strong
KCRO.com
will. You have a
and click
strong
on
mind.
my
You have a
podcast,
strong
Talk of the
back. I'm gonna
Heartland,
tell you, you can get
and
things
then you
done
can
on
write
your
them
own.
down as
Well,
I
I'm
go
gonna tell
through.
you right now, folks, one
So
of these
here's
days
number
you're
uno.
gonna be broken.
You might be too prideful if
God sent
you get
Nebuchadnezzar
annoyed
to the fields for
by minor
7
flaws in
years.
others.
The most visible, most powerful, strongest
Number
man
two.
on the planet
Hold on, what?
was sent out
Minor.
to look like a
Mac, we
roving
all get annoyed by
Neanderthal for
minor
7
flaws in
years
others.
because God said, you
Well, I think the
are
point
not
is that
unstoppable. And
the
friend,
operative word
make
is
no
minor.
mistake about it, you
Not
are
that
not
big a
God
deal.
in your life, and
Don't
I am
major
not
in the
God in my
minor.
life. God
But
Himself
if
is
you do,
unstoppable. What He says
might be
is
too
what
proud.
must be.
You might be too prideful
I'm
if
poor
you
in
have a hard
spirit.
time
Not just
asking
because
for
I
help.
think I'm poor in spirit.
Me,
I'm poor in
a
spirit because I see
guy?
myself the way I really am.
Have a problem asking
I
for
am
help?
absolutely
Oh,
incapable
come on.
of any spiritual good whatsoever.
I remember one day
I
when
come
my
to
family
God
and I were
as
in
an
California,
utter sinner.
for one of the
My
first times
righteousnesses
as an
are
adult.
filthy rags. The best
there was
things I've
no
ever done in
GPS
my
back
life
here, and I was
outside of
trying to
Christ
find this
are
place, and the kids
absolutely
were
an
actually
abhorrence to
Catholic.
God.
Wife's in the front seat. I'm asking her to look at the
You're
map and
going to
tell
be
me where we're
broken by the
going.
hand of God. He
And
is
of course,
going
she
to
would
break
just
you
say,
one
"Hey,
way or the other,
just
because
pull
God
over here
says,
at this
I am
Casey's
the potter,
and
you
ask
are the
somebody
clay,
where
and it is
to
my
go. It's not
business
that
to do what
hard."
I want to. You have no right
But I
to
was
tell
too
me what to do. And I can tell
I
you,
was
folks,
too
you're going to be
prideful
broken on this side,
ask
or you're going to be broken on that side. And whenever
And
you're
therefore-
kneeling down in hell and praying, God, deliver my tortured spirit from this place,
You might
He's
be
gonna
too
say, it's too late to be
prideful if
broken
you tell
now,
people
young man.
that you're
It is too late to be broken
accomplished
now, young lady. You
with
see,
the
folks,
goal
God
of
is wanting to
impressing.
break us right here
Yeah, my
on
goal
this side so that He
is
can
to
change
impress you.
us. Because if
So I'm
you've
going to tell you
never
about
been broken,
everything
God
I've
cannot
done
fix
in
you.
my
Do you
life,
understand
and
what
then
I'm
I'm
saying?
going to sit back and go, aren't I
See,
something
brethren,
special?
pride is so much about I want what I
You
want
might
when
be
I
too
want it.
prideful.
But if
I
we
think
would
this
just
is-
submit to Christ, He will give us
You know anybody
better
like this?
things in His time.
You might be too
That's
prideful
the
if
way
you
it
have
is
to
with the
have
Lord.
the last word. Now that
Verse
sounds
35.
so
Who can say to Him,
interesting
God, what have you done?
because it kind of makes
Are you
sense.
asking that right
If
now
the
in your
last word in
God,
any
why did you let this
conversation,
family member do
argument, or
that?
discussion,
God, why
You
have
think
you
it
done
has to
this
be
to me
you.
financially? God, why did you do this to
What
me
does that
with
say?
my child? God, why did you do this? Why are you letting this happen
It
to me in my
means that you're
physical
so
health?
darn
Listen,
proud of
nobody has a case
that
before
you're
you.
just not going to want to listen to anybody else.
Men want
One of the
to
questions I
make
asked in my pastor's
God
question
their debtor.
is this.
Men want to
Would you
be
rather
God.
understand?
They want to put God
or
in a
be
position
understood?
where He owes them something.
I
And if
asked
they
that
can
once
work
to
it out
someone,
and they can be
and
good,
that
then God
person
owes it
turned
to
around
them.
and looked at me and said, well, I want to
I'm
be
poor in
understood.
spirit, not just because I think I'm poor in spirit.
That is not
I'm
the
poor
right
in spirit because I see myself the way I really
It
am.
is much easier to listen to
And when you
others
confront
and
pride
find
in
out
your
what
life,
their needs
that's
are
what happens. It changes
than it
the
is to
direction
try to tell
of
the
your
whole
worship.
world.
The best things
What
I've
your
ever
needs
done in my life outside of
I think
Christ
that's kind
are
of
absolutely
the
an
point of that,
abhorrence
don't
to
you?
God. He cannot accept them. I have
Mark
nothing
writes
to
in his
offer
sermon,
him.
pride
I am
is a
totally
funny thing to
undone
talk about
based on my own
because the
merits.
people
None of it was good.
who most
ever,
need to hear
at
you
all.
talk
None
about
of it.
pride are the ones who are least likely to pay attention and put the teachings into play because they're too proud. And as soon as you start to get a handle on pride and act humbly, well, then maybe you can
From
get
our
proud about
archives,
that.
the Billy Graham Classics.
I think this is interesting. I never
You that are
understood
watching
this
by
word.
television
Before Jesus
already
mugged
know,
me,
I suppose, that we're
I
in the
would hear
Tangerine
the
Bowl
Bible
in
about how
Orlando,
Jesus
Florida.
said we must be meek. You know, the meek
Tonight I
shall
want to
inherit
talk to young people
the earth.
primarily on counting
and
the
this word
cost.
humble would come up over
What it
and
cost
over and over and over.
to follow Jesus Christ.
And I
There's
just
a
did
price
not
to be
understand
paid.
under any condition why Christians wanted to be humble. Well, first of all, the Bible says so. But what's the definition of humble? Do you know? Here's what I've been told and what I learned. The definition of humble is that you are teachable. Now, back that up through some of the things we've just said. You have a hard time asking for help. You get annoyed by minor flaws in other people. You need the last word in every discussion, argument, or difference. Are you teachable if you need the last word? Are you teachable if you're always arguing with someone that, well, I'm right? Well, you know I'm right. Well, of course I'm right. That's not teachable. I'm sorry, it's not. It was hard for me to understand, too. When you preach the gospel for a living, especially to the size audience that we have here at KCRO, I worry sometimes that you think I should always be right. Well, he's on the radio. He's got to know what he's talking about. The only thing I know what I'm talking about is that Jesus loves you. And he always will. He always has. From the moment of the beginning of time, read John 1. 1:1, baby. Just start right there. In the beginning, the Word, which was John's word for Jesus, was there. He knows you've heard this, every hair on your head, every freckle on your face. Jesus is the one, and probably the only one, that can be humble and still say teachable, still stay teachable. It's hard for me. Maybe it's hard for you too. This whole quiz is difficult. And I'm going to take you through the next 5 points pretty quickly. We'll be back in 3 minutes right here on AM 660 and FM 106.7 in Lincoln and all around the world. Yeah. At KCRO.com.
KCRO is seeking partners interested in sharing God's message to our listeners. We would welcome the opportunity to discuss the mission of your business, organization, or ministry and how it might fit into the KCRO lineup. For more information, go to KCRO.com and contact Janelle.
Hey everybody, Van Deeb here with The Journey, and I'd love to have you listen this week with my special guest, Blake Martin, with Fran Nett of the Heartland. It's a super exciting episode this Thursday from 5 to 6 p.m. on KCRO.com or 660 a.m. and also on Sunday at 10 a.m.
Teachers like me, parents, we don't always know as much as you guys do about what's going on with other kids.
Half the time, it's rumors.
Yeah, but if you're ever concerned about a friend who's having trouble with alcohol, prescription drugs, anything, you need to tell an adult, someone you know and trust. That can be hard, but speaking up about a problem is what helping a friend is all about.
For more information, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Sponsored by DHHS and aired in cooperation with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
It's natural to hope that your children will learn to be mission-minded. Next time on Focus on the Family, Shauna Pilgreen describes the San Francisco adventure she took with her family that strengthened the heart and the mission mindset of her kids. You'll hear about it next time on Focus on the Family with Jim Daly.
Focus on the Family, weekdays at 7:30 a.m. and 12:30 p.m. on KCRO, 660 a.m. in Omaha and 106.7 FM in Lincoln.
Now your forecast for KCRO. For Omaha, Council Bluffs, and Lincoln. Chance for scattered storms tonight, otherwise mainly clear skies and quiet. Lows level off around 66, southeast winds 8 to 15 miles per hour. Chance for scattered storms tomorrow. High temperatures reach up to 86. Sunshine mixed with clouds at times. Chance for scattered thunderstorms tomorrow night. Lows dip down to about 64, mainly clear skies. I'm weatherology meteorologist Paul Trombley on KCRO. Right now, 83.
100 years KCRO.
Good afternoon. It's the 16th day of September in the Lord's year 2022. I'm Mac McKoy, and this is the Talk of the Heartland. It's a Friday, and on every Friday we have 15% more fun here on the radio. And so today, I hope you find this fun. In fact, the best thing about this quiz is the last question. You may be too prideful if, and I'll promise you'll have that before 5 o'clock. By the way, at 5, it's an incredible program. One of my new favorite ones. Alive and Active with Nebraska coach Ron Brown and Michael Bliss. That is Alive and Active this afternoon, 5 o'clock, right here live on the Talk of the Heartland at AM 660 and FM 106.7 and around the world at KCRO.com. I might be too prideful if I get offended when my advice isn't taken. Holy Toledo. That was one of my biggest character flaws before Jesus mugged me. What do you mean you're not going to do what I told you to do? I mean, look at my pedigree. I know what I'm talking about. I'm not trying to be right. I'm just trying to tell you that if you want to do it right, pause, in parentheses, at least what I think is right. Push play. Then you've got to take my advice. By the way, there's that word that I love to talk about. I love the word offended because one of the things that Jesus has taught me is that being offended is a choice. No, Mac, that's not right. Some things are just offensive. That's what you choose to believe. That's part of your moral. That's part of your pedigree. Just remember that when you get offended, you're choosing to do that. And I can tell you a little secret. Psst, come here. It's because you're trying to manipulate the conversation. Well, Mac, I want to tell you what you just said. That's offensive to me. What's the reaction? Oh, I'm sorry. I did not mean to offend you. Let's go back to the beginning of the conversation or this point or that point, and we won't talk about that anymore because I don't want to offend you. Now, on the outside, the person goes, well, I really appreciate that. Thank you. On the inside, the devil's saying, gotcha. You got him to apologize. You got him to back off from his position. You've manipulated the conversation so you will win. You might be too prideful if you are unwilling to go in public without makeup, without looking your best. Well, that's not my problem. And seriously, I am one of the most unfashionable guys you'll ever meet. You know what color my pants are every day? Black. You know what color my shoes are every day? Black. You know what color my shirt is? Almost always black. I have to be told by Ann to get my hair cut. Pop, your hair's too long. I mean, and then she pulls on the back of it. Look at this. Got to trim that mustache up. But you know somebody, and I know you do, that they are unwilling to go in public without makeup or without looking their best. You might be too prideful if you approach people, classes, sermons, as if you probably have very little to learn. After preaching a message one day, several years ago, I had somebody that came up and said, well, I knew that. Pastor, you need to start delivering messages which we don't know the answer to. I know the answer to every single one of your messages. Okay. You might be too prideful if you have trouble trusting or submitting to leaders. Wait, Mac, time out. I don't trust my leaders. I don't trust my elected officials. I don't trust my boss. I don't trust my pastor. I don't trust the neighborhood committee president or the condo president. I understand that. But just ask yourself the question, does that make you too prideful? Now, we have 8 so far. There are 16 in all, and I promise we're going to get to those before the end of this program. Mark Ashton, who is the lead pastor at Christ Community Church of Omaha, preached this sermon and gave this quiz last weekend. And my friend Randy, who I'm in a Bible study with on Thursdays, and Randy's a smart guy, really good guy. He said, I don't think I've ever heard a message that good. And so when he said that, I needed to get a hold of Mark. And when he said that it was the best he'd ever heard, I knew I needed to get a hold of Mark and get a copy of that sermon in writing so I could share some of it with you. I'm sure if you go to cccomaha.org, you'll be able to listen to that sermon, and he gives it much, much better than I do. All right. You might be too prideful if when you hurt somebody's feelings, you think the person is too sensitive. Does that strike home for you? It does for me. Sometimes I just want to look at people and say, what are you, a snowflake? Can't you take it? I'm sorry that you're offended. I'm sorry that you're hurt. But that's your problem. That's probably the biggest pride of all. When somebody says, I'm sorry you're hurt by what I said. See, that's not really I'm sorry. That's saying you're a snowflake. You're the weak one here. Buck it up, buddy. Take it. That's not what Jesus would tell us. You might be prideful when you spend more time talking than listening in most conversations. I resemble that remark. Sometimes I realize that that whatever I have to say, I could have said it in 20 seconds, but instead now I've said it in 1 minute, and I've said it 3 times in the conversation. Are you listening to me? You might be a little prideful if you spend more time talking than listening in most conversations. Remember, do you want to be understood, or do you want to understand? You fail to understand. I fail to understand when I'm not listening. How many times have we had to say this? You're not listening to me. Now, did you hear me? I'm sorry. I've said that all my life, but it's rude. And that's prideful. And that's number 10. When we come back, 11 through 16, and I promised you that 16 was going to be a doozy. And remember, that I didn't write any of this. This comes from Mark Ashton at Christ Community Church. This was the sermon he gave last week, and he can do it much better than I can. So go to cccomaha.org and hear it for yourself. Until then, we'll be back in 90 seconds. And we'll start with number 11, and we'll get to 16 before the top of the hour, and Alive and Active with Coach Ron Brown from the Cornhuskers and Michael Bliss start with Alive and Active. That's coming up right here on AM 660, FM 106.7, and all around the world. At KCRO.com.
Still make you crazy.
Hello, this is Alan.
This is James.
This is David.
And this is Walter.
AJDW Conversation.
You can listen to AJDW Conversation every Sunday from 1 to 2 p.m. right here on AM 660 KCRO.
The Salvation Army Croc Center Omaha is at the center of it all. From a full range of fitness activities to youth programs to community spaces and more, there's no better place in the metro for the whole family. Now we're inviting you to join in the fun and enjoy summer savings while they last. Sign up now during our membership drive and we'll waive the registration fee. The Croc Center is just moments away from the Kennedy Freeway and Q Street, so join today. Go to omahacroc.org for more information. That's omahakroc.org.
Friday on Truth for Life, Alistair Begg explains why true wisdom involves being peaceable.
God is introduced to us in the Bible as the God of peace on numerous occasions. Therefore, it stands to reason that God's children would themselves be peace-loving people.
Find out more about the practical aspects of God-given wisdom Friday on Truth for Life with Alistair Begg.
Truth for Life with Alistair Begg. Weekday mornings at 8 on KCRO. 660 AM in Omaha and 106.7 FM in Lincoln.
The Heartland's Christian Voice, KCRO.
All right, it is the 16th day of September in the Lord's year 2022. I'm Mac McKoy, and that is the Talk of the Heartland on the Heartland's Christian Voice, AM 660, 106.7 in Lincoln and all around the world at KCRO.com. I was laughing because John on my chat said, I am nothing and he is everything. Love that. Peaceful Streams of Jesus. I know who that is, but that's their name online. If we've never been broken, God cannot fix us. she says that line caught me. Great work on bringing all this together, Mark. And you know what I like? The fact that she said there, she realizes this is not me, this is Mark. I always give credit to other people when the other people did what I'm reading or telling you about. And this is, I'm sharing with you a sermon that Mark Ashton from cccomaha.org gave last week. And I'm sorry, sometimes I mix up his last name and another one of my favorite pastors, who is Delmar Austin. So I apologize, but it's Mark Ashton from Christ Community Church, Omaha, cccomaha.org. All right, just a few minutes left, and we've got a couple more to go. So here we go. You might be prideful if you have a hard time apologizing or admitting wrongdoing. Do I have your permission to tell you something you probably don't want to hear? I mean, I'm not going to tell you if you don't give me permission. If you never do anything wrong, at least in your mind, and it's always somebody else's fault for what happened, and you can't apologize for hurting feelings or being wrong, baby, that's the top of the list on pride. That's it, right there. Think about that. You might be too prideful if you pretend things are fine, even when you're falling apart. Now, listen to that. If I said to you that, man, I always pretend things are okay, even when I'm falling apart, I wouldn't tell you that sounds prideful. But it is. Because we're not willing to say, no, I'm not all right. You know, people always say, hey, Mac, how you doing? What do they expect back? Hey, I'm good. How are you? But what if I looked at them and said, dude, I'm not good at all. I'm falling apart. Are you prepared for the answer to the question you asked? Hey, how you doing? Do you really mean it when you ask? I don't all the time. I admit it. That's just a, hey, buddy, how you doing? Nice to see you. What's going on? Blah, 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 blah. That is a sense of being prideful. I'm so guilty on so many of these. You're supposed to make a list and count how many things you are guilty of or you think resembles you. And there is no magic quotient at the bottom of this, all right? There is no magic. I'm not going to say, well, if you only had 3 out of the 16, then you're really not that prideful. No, if you got 1, you're prideful. Maybe it's only on that one thing, but you have pride. You know where pride comes from? I'm going to give you an out here. It comes from Satan. It's Satan whispering in your ear. No, don't tell him you're falling apart. Just tell him you're fine. Oh, no, don't admit you're wrong. Don't apologize. You're all right. Where Jesus would say, step up. Tell him you're sorry. Apologize. Ask for forgiveness. Admit that you're not okay and you're falling apart. You might be too prideful if you refuse to show your weaknesses. Vulnerability. What's the opposite of vulnerability? Yeah, you know it. Pride. Boy, that guy got up and preached a sermon the other day, and he was weeping and showed his vulnerable side when he admitted that he too was prideful or sinful or had done something wrong. Vulnerability is the opposite of prideful. Don't be prideful. Be vulnerable. Jesus was so vulnerable that he hung on the cross, shed every drop of his blood for you and I, so that every single thing we've ever done that's a sin would absolutely be forgiven. And then he resurrected. And because of that, we have this thing called the free gift of salvation. You can't earn it. It's not yours. It's God's. And he gave you that gift. Please do not forget that. Please. Coming down to the last few. You might be too proudful if your apologies are followed with, but you know, if you hadn't done that, I wouldn't have done what I did. So I was justified to do what I did. You know people like that? Do you know what a verbal eraser is? It's one 3-lettered word. But, man, I'm sorry I did that or I said that the other day. I just shouldn't have said that. But if you hadn't said or you hadn't done what you had done, then I wouldn't have said that, and I'm justified for saying it. Number 15. You might be too prideful if your spouse and friends tell you that you're too prideful. Seriously. You might want to listen to those men and women that love you, you're in a Bible study with, they're your spouse or your mom or your dad or your child, when they say, Dad, man, you got a lot of pride, brother. Or your spouse gets mad and says, you really think you're something that in a cup of cake, don't you? Or a cup of coffee, don't you? Or a piece of cake. That's probably the one that hits me closest to home. Because I don't want to be told I'm not perfect. Well, I know I'm not. But who are you to tell me? That's prideful. And here's the last one, number 16. And I don't know if this is just Pastor Ashton's sense of humor or whether this was a part of a list he got somewhere. I don't know where these came from. They're pretty darn good. See, pride makes you the center of the universe. Actually, pride is the leader of the gang. But it is pride that makes you think that the other people are a bunch of idiots. Not what we want others to think of us. And finally, here's 16. Are you ready? You might be too prideful if you are currently thinking about someone else who really needs to hear this quiz. I got to admit, that one's good. All right, on this Friday, as we check out, I'll see you in 3 days. If you can't find me, then I'm with Jesus. Here's a couple of my favorite preachers talking about pride right here on the Talk of the Heartland, AM 660, FM 106.7, and you know where else, right? All around the world. Here, very humbly, all around the world, because Jesus makes it so, on KCRO.com.
What is it about pride? We don't want to look weak. Because basically humility is saying I'm nothing, and I need a crutch, and I need help, and I need God, I need Christ, I need what He did for me. I am nothing.
There's another class of people. There's people that are standing out there today that I'm convinced that because of pride and arrogance, arrogance. You stand with your back straight, with your head tilted back, and you think that you're just okay. You think that you're just the best God has ever made, and you've never been broke by God. You've never been broke by man, because you have a strong will, you have a strong mind, you have a strong back, and I'm going to tell you, you can get things done on your own. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, folks, one of these days, you're going to be broken.
God sent Nebuchadnezzar to the fields for 7 years. The most visible, most powerful, strongest man on the planet was sent out to look like a roving Neanderthal for 7 years because God said, you are not unstoppable. And friend, make no mistake about it, you are not God in your life, and I am not God in my life. God himself is unstoppable. What he says is what must be.
I'm poor in spirit, not just because I think I'm poor in spirit. I'm poor in spirit because I see myself the way I really am. I am absolutely incapable of any spiritual good whatsoever. I come to God as an utter sinner. My righteousnesses are filthy rags. The best things I've ever done in my life outside of Christ are absolutely an abhorrence to God.
You're going to be broken by the hand of God. He is going to break you one way or the other because God says, I am the potter and you are